Hi, my name is Theo Lear, and today I'll be teaching you how to successfully hammock camp. To start, I'd like to go over some learning objectives. First, I would like you to know the different types of gear needed to hammock camp. Secondly, I would like you to be able to make an informed buying decision. Third, I would like you to be able to safely set up a hammock. And lastly, I would like you to be able to comfortably sleep in that hammock. To start out, I would like you to know the different types of gear needed to hammock camp. And here on this slide, it's pretty straightforward. First, you need a hammock. Without a hammock, it's impossible to hammock camp, so therefore this is a very integral part of your setup. Secondly, a suspension system. And honestly, this is just as important as a hammock because without it, you would not be able to be successful in hammock camping. Now, the second two, the bug net and rain tarp, are really dependent on your environment. If you are in an environment that has a lot of bugs and or rain, you're going to want these items. But if not, they're really optional and they do not do much for you as far as warmth goes. They really just target those two items, bugs and rain. So it depends on where you are and what your wants and needs are. Lastly is the underquilt. I personally think that this is very important as it does a lot to keep you warm. So depending on if you are generally a cold sleeper and whether or not it is going to be cold outside, I definitely think an underquilt is a worthy investment. Next, we're going to talk about making informed buying decisions when thinking about hammocking products. So here are three of the most well-known companies: Eagle's Nest Outfitters, or Eno, Hummingbird Hammocks, and Grand Trunk. All three of these make high quality products and they each have their own niche. On the left, Eno is very mainstream. They make all of their products well, but they aren't particularly specialized in any area of hammock camping. Secondly is Hummingbird Hammocks, and they really focus on being ultralight. So this company is very good for backpackers and other such lightweight outdoor adventures. And lastly, Grand Trunk is very budget friendly. So while they do make good quality products, they're not up to the same standards as the other two companies on this slide, which is reflected in their pricing. Next, I would like to talk to you about being able to safely set up a hammock, as this is important. Okay, so first off, make sure hammocking is allowed. So if your campsite has an attendant, which many do, it is a good resource for you to ask. So if you ask, they will most likely have an answer for you. And if the answer is yes, they probably have some specific rules and regulations around your straps and what trees you can set up on and other things like that. And of course, if there is no attendant, I would recommend you look it up online, as it is a pretty widely available regulation to see. Secondly, you want to choose a healthy tree, and this is really for the health of the environment. You do not want to choose a tree that you are going to pull over, or if it is dying, you do not want to make it worse. But it also does have an effect on you. If you do set up on a dying or dead tree, or a tree that is not strong enough, there is the chance that it will fall over, which could result in you getting harmed. So what I like to do is when I find a tree, I like to hold it and shake it. And this is a good way to kind of gauge how strong the tree is. Next is hang safe. And as you can see here, should not exceed 18 inches. And this is referring to you when you are in the hammock. So when you are in the hammock, you want to measure the lowest part of you to the ground. And if that lowest point of view exceeds 18 inches, that can make for an unsafe situation for you to be in. So if you do fall, in the unlikely case, it can be very dangerous if you are above 18 inches. And lastly, it's important for you to follow leave no trace principles. And here are three quick ones that I think are really important. First is having to do with the safety of the tree. You want to make sure that the straps you are using are at least 0.75 inches wide. And again, this is going to make sure that they are not too thin, which would result in them cutting into the tree, which is very harmful to the tree. So you want to make sure that they're at least 0.75 inches wide, which will spread out the pressure of your body weight. Secondly, do not disturb any wildlife. And again, this is for your safety as well as the safety of the surrounding wildlife. So you want to make sure that in the tree that you're setting up on, you want to make sure that there aren't any beehives or any animals in the tree. And also on the floor, you want to make sure that you aren't stepping on any snake holes or any gopher holes or any sort of habitat that you might disturb. And lastly, is really a rule of thumb for all outdoor activities. Stay away from water, at least 200 feet. And this is really a way for you to make sure you do not put any pollutants into any water sources. So this is a safety hazard for you, as well as other people that might be utilizing that water source as a resource. And our last learning objective for today's presentation is how to comfortably sleep in a hammock. And to do this, I'm actually going to take you outside with me, where I will actually be able to demonstrate to you how to set up all of the gear that I've talked about, as well as how to have a good night's sleep in your hammock.
Okay, so now that we're outside, I'll be able to show you how to set up your gear, as well as how to sleep comfortably in a hammock setup. Today, I'll be demonstrating how to set up a suspension system, a hammock, and an underquilt. Unfortunately, I don't own a rain tarp or bug net, so I won't be able to demonstrate those for you. But generally, hammocking products come with really straightforward instructions that are easy to follow along with. All right, so first we're gonna do the suspension system. So you'll take it out of the bag. Generally, it comes rolled up like this, so you can unroll the strap, and then the hardest part is getting it around the actual tree. So usually you're gonna have to do a little swing action like this. So once you have it around the tree, and again, this is going to be different for each different suspension system that you might own, but again, they usually come with pretty clear instructions. You're going to choose the length that you want, and then you're going to feed the one end through the other end of the strap and adjust it how you want it, and this is where the hammock will attach. You'll want to do the same thing for the second strap as well. Alright, so once you have your suspension system set up, it's time to use your hammock. So how you're going to do this, you're going to unclip your hammock, undo the drawstring, open it up, and then the hammock will be in this pouch that is actually attached to the hammock, so it's really convenient. So once you unpack it, I like to do one end at a time, so you're going to find your first clip. You're going to clip that onto the strap, and then once you have it clipped in on one end, you'll start walking towards your other tree. So as you can see behind me, I finally have my hammock set up. And as I previously mentioned, it's really important that you hammock camp safely. And a big part of that is making sure that when you're in the hammock, you are not higher than 18 inches above the ground. So the way that I like to check this is by sitting down in the hammock once I set it up. So, once I set it up, I can kind of gauge if the height off the ground is correct. And if I need to adjust it, I can either, one, I can take down the entire system and set it back up at the appropriate height, or two, you can do it the way that I think is a little easier by shimmying the straps up and down the tree as needed. This is an easier way to do it, and it gets the same results, but it's a lot easier and less time consuming. Okay, so now that you're sure your hammock is a safe distance from the ground, you can continue setting up your setup. So, for me, that'll be the underquilt. So again, you'll want to undo the drawstring, open the bag up, and pull out the underquilt. So for me, I like to roll it up just so it's a little nicer. So, as you can see, here on the end, there are adjustable strings that you will actually attach to the clips on the hammock. So let's go over there and I'll show you how to do that. Alrighty, so how you're going to do this, you're going to get the loop on the underquilt. You're actually going to unclip the hammock momentarily, slide the loop around the clip, re-clip your hammock, and then you're going to do the same on the other side. And when you do this, you're going to want to make sure that the underquilt is going under the hammock. Okay, so now that we have it all attached, we can adjust it to the correct tightness. So, as you can see over here, it's very loose. There's a lot of length that can be adjusted. So you want to make sure that it's very snug and tight to the actual hammock. So the way that you're going to do this for my specific model, it's a drawstring, so you're going to undo that, and then you're just going to pull the string through the loop. And then you let go, and it tightens. And you can repeat that on the other side, and every time you do this, you want to make sure that the hammock is staying in the underquilt, like so. All right, now it's time for the fun part, sleeping. So, when you first lay in a hammock, your first instinct will be to lay straight. But it's actually not the best way to sleep because it kind of creates that banana shape that isn't the best for your back and can get really uncomfortable really fast. So the best way to sleep in a hammock is actually at an angle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spread out the hammock and kind of twist my way until I'm laying at an angle. And what this does is it flattens out the hammock and lets me lay on a flatter, straighter plane, which will be better throughout the night because it kind of mimics a mattress, which isn't at an angle, it's just perfectly laying flat. So that's what I'm going to try to do when I sleep in this hammock.
For the last part of this presentation, I'm going to teach you about some of the local flora and fauna to my area, Los Angeles County. To start out with the flora, I'm going to be talking about the snow plant. I chose this because it is incredibly beautiful and unique to this area. Its Greek name is Sarcoda cinquinae. And the reason it's called the snow plant is because it grows as the snow melts here in Southern California. And a fun fact, its Greek name that I mentioned earlier can be roughly translated to the bloody flesh-like thing. But as I'm sure you can tell, snow plant is a much nicer name. And the thing that's really interesting about this plant is that it's mycotrophic, which means it actually has no chlorophyll. Instead, it gets its nutrients and life from fungi underneath the soil. Now I'm going to talk about some fauna. And for this, I'm going to choose an animal that I'm sure you have all seen. That is the western fence lizard. And the way that you can identify one of these as an adult is by its bright blue belly. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this animal, and I know what it is. And these can actually be found all across the western United States, in states including Arizona, California, Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and it can even be found in the northern parts of Mexico. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you all so much, and I really hope you learned how to successfully hammock camp and a couple of things about where I live in Southern California. Thank you.